To achieve the opportunities they deserve in life, our students need academic success. But they also need skills and mindsets in order to overcome the many challenges they face in life. Given our limited time in the classroom with our students, we can't teach everything. We must choose the most important skill to prioritize based on our students' context. The act of diagnosis is the beginning of this.
For example, from his kindergarten classroom in Mumbai, Arnab saw that his students needed to learn to be resilient to poverty and violence. Vivian in Buenos Aires
Thing, or are even sent back home many times because teachers do not attend their own classes. Teachers and cleaners go on strikes, schools are closed for health reasons, among other things.
in this fellowship, we chose to focus on independence and resilience as a trait that would help students move onto a path to overcome the challenges of their context. Independence was necessary for our students to develop skills, which will enable them to take responsibility for their learning and striving for excellence.
Resilience was the choice of the fellows who decided their students need to take problems as opportunities and find ways to face them and solve them. However, we would encourage every teacher to look carefully at their own students and their context, much like Vivian did, to determine which trait to prioritize. There's no one right answer. It's picking and prioritizing, the act of focusing as a teacher. That is important. In order to plan the steps that will achieve our goals, we must first determine the starting level of our students. Bridget, working with Aboriginal students in Northern Australia, found that her initial diagnostic tool did not yield the data she was looking for because students gave desirable answers and lacked honesty. As such, it took her more than one try to accurately diagnose her students. Though difficult, she found this process worthwhile because of the insight it yielded on her students. Similarly, Gully looked at her initial data and realized her students were below where she had thought they were, so she changed her priorities. The diagnostic data helped Gurley identify what her students most needed.
In order to reliably assess students on a trait such as resilience, it is important to determine measurable objectives. This allows you to measure the same things and track progress objectively over time. Measurable objectives could be test scores, homework completions, the number of questions a student asks in class, etc.
Another important way to assess students on a given trait is by implementing self-assessment tools such as student surveys, interviews, or reflection diaries. Taking alone, however, we discover that student self-assessment is not an accurate tool for diagnosis. Like Bridget, Eliza, who taught in Madrid, wrote, "My students tended to answer what they wanted me to hear."
That isn't to say that self-assessment isn't useful. We have found that self-assessment is a good way to build awareness about the trait with students, but the information it provides should be verified with other tools. Avital did this well with her students in Jerusalem. She added indicators such as test scores, focus group interviews, and interviews with parents in order to give her a better picture of how her students were doing. Once the initial assessment is complete, the next step is to outline our priorities and goals.
Tilba, who focused on independence in her Karachi classroom, planned a classroom project based on student observations, survey data, and interviews. The project aimed to have students do the following: attempt the required academic content, set a goal for their desired growth, make significant progress along the planned academic trajectory, track their academic progress, find resources when needed, find solutions to unanticipated problems, take initiative. As indicated, Tiva makes very specific priorities, which helped her construct her methodology and eventually determine the indicators she used to track her progress along the way.
Once we had clear, measurable objectives for building traits to help our students stay on the path of transformational change, we wanted to make sure we were actually moving students in that direction. To do this, we chose indicators to measure our progress along the way. Such indicators needed to be measurable and measured in different ways for verification purposes.
With non-academic skills, where our goal was to see students apply the trait in real life, we wanted to make sure our measurements were not constrained by the classroom walls. Elisa illustrates an aspect of this in the following way. Most of them answered very positively to surveys and interviews, but their real actions in class and outside the classroom made me realize they needed to develop their resilience in order to have more opportunities to succeed in life and to have the ability to choose their future and not let external factors choose their future for them. In other words, Elisa discovered measuring mindsets through student surveys was not enough. She needed to measure behavior too, because it was the behavior that she was trying to change.
Once Georgi decided what skills and mindsets he wanted to develop, he devised a system that would track students' progress. He helped empower students not to give up when facing difficult challenges. He constructed a project where the students faced tasks with increasing difficulty. Each task was independent from the others, so if a student was stuck on one, he or she can proceed nevertheless. This showed Georgi if the students give up or they continue pushing no matter what. Georgi's project relied on constant monitoring throughout the entire process. Once the initial diagnosis was complete and the indicators were determined, he was able to follow the progress very accurately.
Georgi's story shows the importance of focus. Without focus, he would not have diagnosed, monitored progress, or developed a methodology that he did.